Okay, in this talk, I want to get through a few important concepts and introductory technical terms and ideas for the philosophy of mind. The basic question in the philosophy of mind is the mind, by the mind I mean what's going on up here in your head now, consciousness, all those experiences, all those memories and things, sensations, is that thing happening up there in your head? Is that a property of your brain, or is it a substance? That's sometimes called the easy question, believe it or not, in the philosophy of mind. The hard question in the philosophy of mind is how the mind itself, that thing up there that's happening right now, how that kind of thing could be the product or caused by a physical thing like the brain. Now, there's important technical terms that you've probably heard before, but I want to go over them again just to make sure you understand them. That will help you understand the question and the theories. So if you remember, substance is that thing from the Latin substantia, which lies under. It's that thing which possesses properties, but remains the same through them. So for example, this pair of glasses here, it's a substance and it has certain properties. Where it was bought, its colour, its size, who made it, it's related to other things in certain distances and so on and so forth. So that's properties of the pair of glasses. And there's the thing itself, the pair of glasses, that will stay the same, will be the same pair of glasses even if the properties change of those glasses. So that's what a substance is. A property is something that belongs to a substance, as I've just illustrated that. The glasses are, for example, 7 inches long. That's a property of them. Those 7 inches need the glasses to exist. Those 7 inches of these glasses need the glasses to exist. The glasses don't need the 7 inches. The glasses could have been 6 or 5. So an important thing about substances is substances don't need properties. Properties need substances. Now, those are two important concepts, substance and properties. The next important concept in the philosophy of mind is something called intentionality. This is a word that actually goes back to the Middle Ages, then was brought into philosophy by a man called Franz Brentano again, and has been used to describe consciousness. Intentionality means something very similar. It doesn't mean that you intend to do something. It's nothing like that. Intentionality means that your mind is always directed. To be conscious means that you're conscious of something. For example, I might be conscious of looking at myself now in the screen. Someone can be conscious of a bear and be scared of that bear. Someone can be conscious of a thought. Someone can be conscious of a colour. Someone can be conscious of a feeling. Consciousness always has something that it's about. It also has modes: fear, anxiety, happiness, elation, whatever it is. But the key thing about consciousness is that it's about something. And we think that that kind of aboutness doesn't belong to chairs, to stones, to planets. They don't have that inside them. They don't have consciousness. Now, the most fundamental theories that we need to remember are substance dualism, which was effectively Descartes' theory. And Descartes claims that there's two kinds of substances. There are mental substances. Mental substances are effectively what you might call souls. Mental substances are non-extended, non-physical, conscious entities. They don't take up space. They have thoughts, they have feelings, they have experiences, and they are substances that have properties, such as those thoughts and feelings. Then you have physical substances. What makes physical substances physical is that they're extended. They're extended in space. They might change in certain ways, but they take up space. They take up three-dimensional space. The idea that there are two different kinds of substances is called substance dualism. And that is the first theory we look at in the philosophy of mind. And I suppose in some ways it was the kind of classic theory until things started to change. So to make substance dualism clear, you have souls, minds, and bodies or brains, two different substances with two different sets of properties that are connected. On the other extreme, you have something called physicalism. Physicalism is the belief that the only substances that exist are physical substances, i.e. the fundamental constituents and structure of the world is physical. It's not, there are no immaterial substances. If we described the universe and everything in it, we could go through all the physical things, quarks, electrons, protons, how they're related to each other in the laws of physics. We could talk about black holes, supernovae. We could talk about the movement of planets and stars, but we'd be talking ultimately about physical things, and that would include animals and their evolution and their brains. Consciousness would be some kind of thing that's related to that develops along with that, perhaps. But it's ultimately best understood as physical. So for the physicalists, the mind is a property of the brain. So to get an idea here, the substance dualists are saying that the answer to the question of whether the mind is a substance or a property is the mind is a substance. The physicalists are going to be saying no, the mind isn't a substance, the mind is a property of the brain. Now what I want to do now is just briefly go through some of the theories you're going to look at and give you a small introduction to them so that you get the layout of the land. So as I've said, you've got substance dualism on one side. And if you abandon substance dualism and you think it doesn't work, you may turn to something like property dualism, which is the claim that there's only one kind of substance, physical substance, but two different kinds of property, physical properties and mental properties. So that's a bit less of a dualist theory. It's still dualist, but not as dualist as substance dualism. Then some people abandon that and say, well, that's not very likely to be true. So we have something called mind-brain identity theory. Mind-brain identity theory just says that the mind and the brain are the same thing. To have pain just is to have certain things happening in your brain. Certain electrical sensors firing just is what it is, for example, to be in pain. They're the same thing. So that's called mind-brain identity theory. We also have something called functionalism. Functionalism is the claim that what the mind is best understood as in a functional way. That means to know what the mind is, we have to know what it does, what its function is. And that means understanding what a mental state's function is. So functionalists understand the mind ultimately as a operating system. And if you want a good kind of analogy there, they can think of the mind as a computer, right? So think of a computer's hardware, that would be the brain, and the software that runs on that hardware would be the mind. But the software does things, takes certain inputs, and it produces certain outputs. That's the idea of functionalism. We also have something called behaviorism, which tries to equate the mind with behavior and activities. That has its roots in logical positivism and empirical psychology. It's an interesting theory, though mostly abandoned today. Finally, we have something called epiphenomenalism, which is like property dualism, very similar to it. It says that the mind doesn't affect the body, but the body affects the mind. And then we have the most extreme form of physicalism called eliminative materialism. Eliminative materialism says that in reality there is no mind. The idea of a mind is a confusion, that all there is the brain and the things going on in the brain. And that if we knew enough neuroscience and we could change our language to fit the realities of science and neuroscience, we wouldn't even need the idea of mind. That theory tries to eliminate the claim that we have a mind at all. It's a very extreme theory, and it's one of the last that we look at, if not the last actually. Now I've given you that little introduction just so that when we go into the course, you have an idea of the geography, so to speak, of the subject. Okay, so let's get into it.